This is it. The fantasy championship is upon us, and we are going to make sure your lineups are set. Every start-sit decision you have to make in order to win your fantasy football championship will be discussed on today's episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Welcome, man. Lucas Wenzel, Tyler Platt. You are being hosted by two managers who are duking it out in the fantasy championship themselves this week, not just in their own respective leagues, but against each other. Ty took down Cameron in our semifinals last week, the juggernaut of a team that Cameron had 2 years in a row.
Got
Chokes
him.
it away.
Got him.
In week 16. Chokes it away. It was me last year, Tyler this year. I'm feeling great this week. I don't know about you. I'm feeling great.
Oh, I'm feeling great too. I'm humble brag. I'm in the championship in 4 of my leagues this year. This has been an absolute great year, and can't wait to put the cherry on top by knocking you off this week. So I'm excited to discuss though, because I can't wait to tell you to sit CeeDee Lamb with a great matchup that he has this week.
It's all right. You just wait until Jamar Chase undergoes a superhuman recovery and is actually ready to play in week 17.
Paul Pierce has to get carried off.
That's what. It's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. No, we will be discussing every start-sit decision that you need to make this week, including some decisions that Tyler and I are even making this week in our matchup against one another. So this will be a very telling episode for the both of us. We might be playing a little bit of chess this episode. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel already, make sure you do that. Turn on that notification bell as well. We'll have podcasts twice a week for you, daily YouTube videos as well, including daily shorts. So much content coming out for you all. And if you're listening to the audio podcast version, thanks so much for tuning in over there as well. Make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications again, so you'll be alerted when all of our podcast episodes are up. Ty, let's give the people what they want. They're here for start-sit decisions that they need to make to win their championship. Let's give it to them. And per usual.
Oh, sorry. I missed.
Nope.
I'm in 5 championships actually. Just over 50% of my leagues, I'm in the championship. No big deal. No big deal.
You wanna know what stinks? I probably should be against you in another championship as well. I should be in the
Purdy
Federation of
absolutely
Stooges.
sold you.
That one too. So I should be in 3. Oh, I should be in 3 against you. Oh no, you're 100%.
No.
I played for Kyler.
Oh no.
Oh, no. Oh, you're so right. I should be in 3 of those championships against you. Oh, this stinks.
Man.
This stinks. Oh, I didn't even realize that. I was thinking Federation of Stooges. I lost by 2 points.
Oh, that too.
All because I don't remember who I played over Gus Edwards. I think it was Chuba. No, Chuba had a good week though. I played someone over. Oh, it was somebody in my flex. I don't remember. Oh, Darren Waller. That's who it was. I played Darren Waller, tight end premium in my flex, and that didn't work out. Should have played Gus. I would have won. Anyways, people want start-sit decisions though. Ty, gosh, I can't get that out. We got a lot to chat through, so let's do it. Let's start Thursday Night Football. Tonight's game, the New York Jets, they take on the Cleveland Browns. This is a disgusting game. You have Trevor Siemian and Joe Flacco. Shout out to 2017. It sounds like a time where these two quarterbacks would have been going off against each other, where Siemian was a young buck and Joe Flacco was nearing the end of his prime. This is gross. I don't want to talk about anybody in this game. I really don't. Because I think you're obviously starting Amari Cooper after his historic day last week. It's a terrible matchup.
But you got
I think you're starting him though. Joe Flacco is too hot, and I think, are you starting Breece Hall as well? The matchup for him isn't terrible. The Browns have been more susceptible to the run as of late, but I think you're starting him in PPR leagues just based on the check down value that he has.
Yeah, you got to at this point.
Let's dive into a few other players then. Garrett Wilson. The Jets, they're 21st in, or excuse me, the Browns, they are 21st in fantasy points a game. Fantasy point. Oh my gosh, I cannot talk, Ty. The Jet.
so distraught about his 2 fantasy leagues that English has gone
you
out
threw
the
me such a
window.
curveball. You just you totally rattled me with that. Absolutely rattled me. The Browns, they are 21st in fantasy points per game allowed to wide receivers since week 12 over their last 5 games. However, Garrett Wilson, he's had 14 and 15 targets in 2 of his last 3 games. What are you doing with him? I can't figure out what I'm supposed to do with him championship week.
Do we know? I'm pretty sure it's still Trevor Siemian, is it not?
Yes, it is. It will be Trevor Siemian.
I mean, if it feels like for the same reason that we're probably starting Amari Cooper, we should probably be starting Garrett Wilson, right? Like,
feels like it.
Like, bad matchup, but it's the quarterback's go-to guy. Like, it feels like you still have to. You got to probably play him as a flex this week versus what could have been a wide receiver 2 in some weeks with the target numbers he's been getting. But again, with the logic that we're using for Amari Cooper, it feels like you probably have to play Garrett Wilson still.
Let's talk about 2 target hogs. Well, no, I won't ask you that question because that another player comes from our matchup, and I don't want to get your advice on that. You're going to play me on that. See, we're already playing chess here.
Oh,
I was gonna ask you about a decision, but I'm not going to because I'm playing you. Why would I ask you? Why would you help me out?
I mean, you literally have Garrett Wilson. I have Amari Cooper. We're both saying start him. So we either boost each other up really well because of these guys, or we absolutely just fail because of these guys. Who knows?
I think the other pass catcher you can play in this game, David Njoku, he scored 16 plus in each of his last 3 contests. He's been the tight end 1 in PPR formats. Goodness, not since week 16. I put that in the doc. I believe that's since week 9, if I'm not mistaken. I want to pull up that for a second, though. But Njoku has been on absolute fire recently. You have to be playing him this week.
Yeah, have to. Even again, the Jets secondary is the strength of this team, but this is not the week to sit a guy like David Njoku because he has been in fuego since week 9. What 10, 11, 9.
I am pulling it up here. Goodness, I can't believe I lost that number. That would be since week 8. He has been the tight end 1 in fantasy points per game.
Yeah, you got to play him. Oh my
Joe
goodness.
Flacco.
Here's the other thing. It's not even close with Njoku. It's 20 points more.
Yeah, 20 total points more. Njoku's been on fire. He has been awesome. He has been awesome. It helps when you have 27 and 26 in weeks 14 and 15, but still 17, 12.5, 11.8, 12.6, 11.9. I mean, when you're scoring 12 consistently and you throw in a few 20-point games in there, that really lifts you up. Joe Flacco, what do you want to do with him this week? He's been on fire. I mean, quarterback 13, quarterback 10, quarterback 9, quarterback 1 in his 4 starts. Jets allowing the fewest fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, though, since week 12. They're only allowing 11 fantasy points per game. I know he's been hot. This is not the week I want to get cute with Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
We'll keep it moving then. If we're in agreement, we're super boring. Let's move on to Saturday's game. Only Saturday game we have this week. The Detroit Lions, they visit the Dallas Cowboys, who are playing Amon-Ra. You're playing Jahmyr Gibbs, who, my gosh, has been on fire recently. You're playing Dak Prescott. You're playing CeeDee Lamb. Monty, what's his status? He's one I forgot to throw in here.
Oh, good question. Let me look that up for you.
I'm not super. I think I would play Monty, but I'm not super excited to play Monty.
No, he feels like he's another running back that we're going to talk about. Oh, you know what? It's like him and James Conner this week are like the 2 guys you're just like, man, that stinks. But
I think I know who I would play out of those 2. I think I would play James Conner out of those 2.
I would too.
You don't love the matchup with Dallas. If Monty does play, I've got the they haven't given me an update on his injury report yet. That's weird. It feels like injury reports are slower to come out this week. Is that just me?
Yeah, no, I get that sense too. But I will say the encouraging thing though, for Monty is that over the last 4 games, he's had 3 games with at least 17 carries, so he's getting touches. But it's Dallas, and Dallas has been pretty good against the run. So it's like if he's not getting much receiving work, is he going to score on the touches? And in this game, I don't think so.
I want to hope this is going to be a high scoring game, but when both defenses are really good against the run, Detroit 4th fewest fantasy points allowed to running back since week 10, the 4th fewest fantasy points per game, excuse me. I want this to be high scoring. I feel like this is just going to be like a solid defensive game where, it's going to be a solid 21 to 26, 27 game. It'll be a good game, but I don't know how much scoring it will lead to for the likes of Amonte, for the likes of Tony Pollard, who we'll also talk about. I mentioned the Lions' 4th fewest fantasy points per game running back since week 10. That includes only 3.2 yards per carry and the 7th fewest rushing yards. He's really cooled off here over the last 2 weeks. Running back 36 and the running back 48. He has scored no more than 7.7 PPR fantasy points in those 2 games. You want to trust Tony Pollard championship week? You want to take him for a ride here against a tough Detroit Lions defense?
Problem is that if you don't have reinforcements, if you don't have another option, you might be stuck. I know for me, I have other options, so I have the luxury of not playing Tony Pollard this week. But you might be in a spot where you've got no one else, and it's pretty unfortunate. But you might just have to play him then.
David Montgomery or Tony Pollard in this game?
See, I would still go Tony Pollard because there's some kind of receiving work that could be available to him. Like we've seen him get 7 catches in a game before.
Yep.
So I would lean Pollard, but I don't feel great about either.
I would lean that way as well. And how about the other guy we talked about then, James Conner? Would you play him or Tony Pollard?
Probably James Conner still.
I think I lean that way too. I can't believe I'm saying that. I think I would.
At that point, it's a touches thing between those two.
Right.
And James Conner, he's getting just enough receiving work to keep him,
make 5 receptions last week.
I mean, yeah, again, I would go James Conner over Tony Pollard.
How about Jake Ferguson? Detroit, the 7th most fantasy points allowed to tight ends since week 12, 13.8 yards per reception. I like Jake Ferguson this week. I think absolutely you can fire him up if you lost TJ Hawkinson, like yours truly did going into the fantasy championship. Jake Ferguson is the guy I had as on my roster, and he is now in my starting lineup this week. I actually have good confidence in him this week. And even if I didn't, I would probably tell you to play Jake Ferguson this week.
Wow, you've got a lot riding on Dallas this week.
I really do. Yeah, I got I got Dak, CD, and Jake Fergie all.
Do you want me
to bring me to Titletown this week?
Do you want Tony Pollard on top of that too?
Yeah. Why don't I? I'll slide you. I think I'll slide you B-Rob for Tony Pollard.
No. Jeez, get a load of this guy.
You agree? You can play Fergie this week?
Yeah, definitely can.
Tennessee, they visit the Houston Texans. I don't think there is one player that you should automatically be locking into your lineup for this game.
Mm-mm.
I think there's question marks around all of them because you have Derrick Henry, right? You want to think he destroys the Houston Texans and divisional opponents. The problem is he was just shut down by Houston 2 weeks ago. 20 touches for only 10 yards in that game. First round of the fantasy playoffs. Remember how pissed you were? If you're a Derrick Henry manager, you're probably not even in the championship. So I don't know why this question pertains to you. Because he's absolutely screwed you that first week of the fantasy playoffs. But look, Houston, 9th fewest fantasy points of running backs over the second half of the season. I think you play Derrick Henry, though.
Well, that's a good point. Well,
because could be the game where he does go for 20 and 180 and 3 tutties. Like, it's not impossible. Tennessee has been awful on the road this year, but
yeah. So James Conner or Derrick Henry?
I'm still going to play Derrick Henry.
Really? Okay.
I don't think I would. Derrick Henry is one of those players where on any given week he could give you 25 attempts for 183. That's not a chance I'm willing to take in the fantasy championship this week. Now, would I rank James Conner ahead of Derrick Henry? I probably would, but if I had them on my team, I don't know if I could reasonably say, you know what? I'm sitting Derrick Henry against a divisional opponent. I know that philosophy is kind of out the window after this year, but I would never forgive myself if I sat Derrick Henry on championship week against a divisional opponent, the Houston Texans, who he has absolutely demolished every year of his career except for this year in the fantasy championship, and I lost because of it.
So
I would rather go down with him.
Sure. That makes sense. I was about to get real ugly with you on this one, but Austin Eckler or Derrick Henry?
Eckler, I would still play over Derrick Henry there. I'm not excited for either of them, but
right.
I would play Eckler over Derrick Henry.
No, but I will say that's a good way to put it though. Like Derrick Henry is one of those players that this week you are okay going down with. If he's the reason why you lose, you can at least point to everything. I shouldn't say everything, but there are more good signs than negative signs. And yes, everyone's going to get scared off by this last matchup, but like you said, he's the one that you can go down with.
Yes, I had another. And you know what? If you don't want to play Derrick Henry this week, all the power to you. Play someone else over Derrick Henry. I do not blame you for that whatsoever. Let's stick in this offense. We'll keep it moving. DeAndre Hopkins. This is a great match for D-Hop. Houston, they've been allowing the fourth most fantasy points to wide receiver since week 10, second half of the season. Couple of duds the last 2 weeks here, 4 and 4.1 fantasy points each of the last 2 weeks, but did have 25.4 and 18.9 the 2 weeks prior. Will Levis, he did practice today. You have any interest in D-Hop this week? I think you can flex him this week.
I think you can too. I'm pulling up some statistics on DeAndre Hopkins because if memory serves me right, he does play out wide significantly more than anywhere else, and sure enough, he does. And that's where Houston is most vulnerable in the secondary. I think it makes sense. I think if Levis plays, then he absolutely is a play. But if it's Ryan Tannehill, that's tough.
I'm a little more hesitant. I think I'm still willing to flex him though in the matchup
because the matchup is there. The matchup is there,
especially if CJ Stroud is back.
Yes,
he returned in limited fashion to practice on Wednesday. Tennessee, they're 20th in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks over the last 4 games. I'm not excited, but it's CJ Stroud. He's been balling this year. I think you can still play him. And Nico Collins, he's the other one we should talk about here. 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers in the last 4 games Tennessee has allowed. Nico Collins or DeAndre Hopkins in this game? Let's assume Will Levis plays.
Nico Collins.
I would too. I'll stick with a quarterback play there. But you agree, both are startable this week, given both of their starting quarterbacks play?
Yes. If both starting quarterbacks play, then yes. I would probably still have more interest in Nico Collins if it's Case Keenum again, but I would, definitely I would take Nico over DeAndre Hopkins more times than not this week.
The Atlanta Falcons, they visit the Chicago Bears. DJ Moore, he did come back and finish out last week's game after leaving. He doesn't have an injury designation attached to him at this very moment. I think you play him no matter what. Top 10 wide receiver on the year, you play him. Justin Fields, he has also been on fire recently. I believe you play him this week as well. I know Atlanta isn't the greatest matchup for quarterbacks this year, but
the guy's been rushing.
And you play that. And look, Bijan Robinson, can you trust Arthur Smith in the fantasy championship?
Heck no.
But you're going to play Bijan anyways, aren't you?
You probably have to, but man, Chicago really, really good against the run. Like,
yes.
I think we've gotten to the point where we need to stop saying like, oh, they're much better in the second half. No, just much better now. And they are very, very good against the run. Bijan feels like another Derrick Henry.
I think I agree with that.
But
again, Bijan is one I'm willing to go down the flames with. I think you drafted him in the first. I know I'm not trying to use ADP as a reason to start a player, but you spent your first round pick on him, and if you're in the championship with him, he got you there last week with 19.5.
Yep.
Again, I think I'm willing to go down flames with the guy. I don't think Bijan Robinson finishes outside of the top 24 running backs this week. Therefore, you should start him. Yeah. That's kind of my logic.
Yeah, agreed.
Drake London.
Nope.
No thanks. Okay, we can. I won't even. Nope, we can move on. Don't even think about it. Bears running backs. Khalil Herbert, 20 for 112 and 1 last week. 19.1 fantasy points. The running back 11 on the week. Roschon Johnson got 12 touches. Any interest in the Bears running backs this week against the Falcons?
No. If I'm trying to find, that's why, because I'm looking at season-long stats. If you have the JT finish off the top of your head, you can definitely share that. But JT finished as the running back 30 last week. Nope. That was against Atlanta, so nope.
Yeah, I will pass on any Chicago Bears running back this week. Let's move on. Miami Dolphins, they visit the Baltimore Ravens. You're playing Lamar, you're playing Tyreek, and if Raheem Mostert suits up, you are playing Raheem Mostert as well, despite Baltimore allowing the 5th fewest fantasy points per game to running backs in their last 4 games. This offense is too hot to not play. You'll be without Jalen Waddle in this game, most likely.
Yep, high ankle sprain.
Devon Achane. Quiet week 16, 7 of 24 rushing, caught 1 pass for 7 yards through the air, only 4.1 fantasy points. If Raheem Mostert doesn't play, are you going to play Devon Achane?
Have to.
You think you have to?
Because the preference for McDaniel in the red zone or near the goal line is to run it in. They don't really pass very well inside the 10, inside the 5. Got to.
I don't know how I feel about Devon Achane. Part of me is like he's a big play waiting to happen. The other part of me is like, is he going to Gabe Davis me this week? You know what I mean?
Well, are you talking if Mostert plays?
I'm talking if Mostert doesn't play still.
Well,
by Gabe Davis me, I mean he gives me 45 rushing yards and 2 receptions for 10 yards. You know, he gives you 7 fantasy points on the week. No touchdowns.
Maybe the question is, who do we think takes an increased role if Mostert is out between Achane and Jeff Wilson?
Which is the other thing, because right. Jeff Wilson got a ton of work at the end of last week, which is what I'm also kind of concerned about.
So, yeah, right. The workload probably doesn't completely go to Achane if Mostert is out.
I'm not forcing Achane in. I'll say that. Yeah. I'm not going to force him in.
Yep.
But if you're like, oh well, I'm hurting at running back and Achane is like my running back too, great. You go ahead and play Devon Achane if Raheem Mostert doesn't play. But I'm not going to force him in. Yeah. I might actually. Zay Flowers is an interesting one. He scored 20 plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. Scored a touchdown in each of those games as well. Miami, they're kind of middle of the pack against wide receivers, the 19th in fantasy points per game allowed to wide receivers over the second half of the season. He's hot right now. And in a game that's going to require a lot of points, I'm interested in Zay Flowers this week.
Yeah, I am too. He's probably like smack dab middle of flex territory for me, because he doesn't really get targeted downfield as much as we probably want him to be, but that's okay because he's just racking up receptions at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. He's being targeted like crazy without Mark Andrews. And again, in a game that's going to need points scored, unless the Ravens just absolutely, do what they did to the 49ers and just make Tua look absolutely silly. Maybe they don't even need Zay Flowers, and instead they lean on Gus Edwards. 13 fantasy points in week 16, 9 for 31 and 1 on the ground, added a 39-yard reception as well. But Miami, they're allowing the second fewest fantasy points per game to running back since week 10, the eighth fewest over the last 4 weeks. Gus running back 2 this week.
I feel like he's the riskiest play at that point because you're banking on a touchdown. And man, I mean, he did it against San Francisco. So who are we to say that, like, oh, he can't do it against Miami? Well, because Baltimore keeps getting down to the goal line.
Right.
It's a risky play. That's the only way I can explain it.
I'm not looking to start Gus Edwards championship week if I don't have to. I'm not looking to get him into my lineup just because I hope he scores a touchdown this week. I would rather play more comfortable players than try and bank on the touchdown for Gus Edwards. Let's move on. The New Orleans Saints, they visit the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're playing Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Rashad White, Mike Evans. They are all studs, absolute studs. You play them, no questions asked. Big week potentially for Chris Olave. Could have back-to-back 20-plus point weeks here. You heard it here first. Not that that's really a shock. How about Chris Godwin? 11-plus targets in 3 straight games now. Obviously, his massive week in week 15 got you to the semifinals. 13.9 fantasy points this last week. He draws New Orleans. It's the Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore week. Is Lattimore still out?
He is.
So all of a sudden, I'm a little less interested in Chris Godwin this week because if Marshawn Lattimore, look, my theory, it works. If Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore are matched up with each other, Chris Godwin, congratulations, wide receiver, top 15 wide receiver week. Look, if Lattimore is still out though, I'm less interested in Chris Godwin here.
I feel like Lucas is all of a sudden very worried that Mike Evans is going to drop 203 touchdowns this week like Amari Cooper did last week.
I had a glimmer of hope with that, and then I remembered that, and then I kind of forgot about it, and I'm like, oh, wait, shoot, that's right. Lattimore is still out, isn't he? Oh, yeah, Mike Evans could have himself a day against New Orleans this week. That'll be one to watch.
I mean, I will say, though, yes, it's Lattimore, but there has to be something said for just a defensive game plan, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like with what Godwin has been doing, there's got to be something there for Godwin at this point, right? And if there, I mean, I think you can play him as a flex. I can't go as far to say like I am playing him no matter what. And I'm hoping I've got better options.
Yep.
But if you need him to be a play in your lineup, I think he can.
DeAndre Hopkins or Chris Godwin?
See, now this one gets interesting because I think if Levis plays, I go DeAndre Hopkins. But I think if it's Tannehill, I would go Chris Godwin then. I
agree with that to a T. Who was the other wide receiver we talked about in that game? Nico Collins or Chris Godwin?
Nico Collins. But if it's Case Keenum, I probably go Chris Godwin then.
I would agree. If either have their backup quarterbacks, I would go Chris Godwin in this game because the volume is a guarantee there for him, as we have seen over the last 3 weeks. Let's talk about the quarterbacks in this game, because with how many injuries there have been, you might actually be looking to stream one of these two guys this week. Derek Carr, Tampa Bay, they've allowed the 7th most fantasy points to quarterbacks the last 3 weeks, and each quarterback in those games has thrown for at least 287 yards. Derek Carr might be one of my favorite streaming options this week, if need be.
If need be.
I'm not saying by all means necessary go get Derek Carr, but like if you're in a pinch and you made it to the championship streaming guys, I think it's worth riding Derek Carr this week.
Yeah, no, I kind of have to take his most recent game against the Rams with a grain of salt, because
I mean, he looked terrible.
He looked terrible, and then he got I don't know if I can say he got going in the second half, but
yeah.
I can get behind the streaming argument, but I'm really, really hoping I'm not in that spot if I'm in the championship.
Oh, 100%. I agree with you. Would rather stream him or Baker Mayfield? Because Baker Mayfield, quarterback 12, quarterback 2, quarterback 14 in each of his last 3 games. He scored 19.8 or more fantasy points in each of those games as well.
Yeah, but the Saints are a much, much more difficult matchup than Tampa is for quarterbacks. If I had to choose between those two, I'd probably lead Derek Carr, because and here's the other thing too. New Orleans has more to play for in this game, right?
Yep.
Like, if they can't, I think Tampa clinches if they win, right? So maybe Tampa has something to play for too, but I think just straight up, I would probably lean Derek Carr over Baker Mayfield if I had to choose.
Let's talk one more game before we take a quick break. The New England Patriots, they take on the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, James Cook. Yep. Stephon Diggs. Man, he's stunk. He's been awful. Terrible. Putrid. I'm so sorry. You're probably not even in the championship if you have Stephon Diggs on your roster.
Yep.
If you are, though, there's no world in which you sit him, right? This is Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
This is Derrick Henry, if you ask me. There's no world in which you sit Stephon Diggs.
No, and I feel like this is the matchup where he can actually do something again, because New England...
You would like to think.
Right. I mean, New England shuts down the run, like, to an unbelievable rate. Like, they just shut it down. That puts the ball
not that interested in James Cook then?
I feel like you still have to play him because the guy is getting ridiculous touches.
Fed with Joe Brady. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it was even last week, right, against the Chargers, he only had 70 yards. So it was 7 points, because he had no receiving work either. Right. I have to think he gets some receiving work again this week, right? Because I always try to be careful when I'm, smart coordinators will find a way to get the ball into their playmakers' hands. So even if it's not the traditional handoff to James Cook, it's screen plays, it's swing passes, all that kind of stuff. So I have to think that James Cook is still playable. Yes, it's a tougher matchup, but he's still going to get the ball.
Let's talk about the pass catchers on the Buffalo Bills outside of Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis, Dalton Kincaid.
Nope.
No, there's no... if you have to play Gabe Davis, it's probably because you're in a 14-man league. If you're in anything less than a 14-man league and you have to play Gabe Davis, just don't. Look, he went 4 for 130 in week 16. Wide receiver for 12, 23 fantasy points. You can't trust the man, though. This is here we go. He's going to goose you this week. He's going to give you 2 points this week. This is the week that Gabe Davis is going to absolutely crush your hopes and dreams after he does something good, because that's how it's always worked this year. So you cannot play him. I 100% agree. I don't care how good he was last week. That is not a risk you can take in the championship, with Gabe Davis. Excuse me.
I mean, the touchdown play itself.
Yeah,
he was right spot at the right time because of an incredible play by Josh Allen. Like, I don't want to say it was lucky, but gosh darn it, it was pretty freaking close to being lucky.
Dalton Kincaid, he hasn't seen more than 10 fantasy points since week 11. And the Patriots, the 4th fewest fantasy points to tight ends over the second half of the season. No interest, correct?
Nope.
Here we go, though. Ramondre Stevenson was placed on season-ending IR today. So Ezekiel Elliott, the PPR machine, he is absolutely in the picture for me this week. 7, 5, 9 receptions each of the last 3 weeks. The running back 15 or better in 3 of the last 4 weeks. Now, that being said, Buffalo allowing the second fewest fantasy points per game to running backs over the last 4 weeks. He's New England's number 1 receiver right now. Therefore, in PPR formats, I'm going to play Zeke. I kind of don't care about the matchup. This is playoff Lenny. This is exactly what Ezekiel Elliott has turned into for the Patriots. It is Lombardi Lenny, because he stinks on the ground. And you know what? If he's going to catch 5 passes a game, the guy will probably give you 12, 13, 14 fantasy points. He'll probably finish as a top 24 guy on the week. So yeah, I'm interested in Zeke. I don't care how bad the matchup is. This is playoff Lenny.
Well,
2.0.
It's fantasy playoff Lenny because New England's nowhere near playoffs. But I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean. Lombardi, Lenny, Teasburger. What do you want me to call him, Lenny? Put an adjective in front of him, Lenny.
But I will tell you to sit him this week in our matchup because
duly noted. Or are you playing reverse psychology with me where you want me to think I should actually be starting him, but you're actually telling me the truth?
It's the mind games.
Telling me to sit him.
It's the mind games. We need like the Twilight Zone music as like a
he admittedly was going to be the one I asked about Garrett Wilson earlier. How about that?
Oh, how about neither?
Shame on you for not helping me. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with the second half of the matchups for week 17. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we are back. We are going to wrap up the second half of the week 17 matchups. Let's keep it rolling, Ty. Arizona Cardinals, they visit the Philadelphia Eagles. Play all your Eagles this week. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, DeAndre Swift. How about Dallas Goedert, though? Dallas Goedert, 9 targets in each of the last 2 weeks. But week 16 was his first game with more than 8 fantasy points since week 7. And Arizona's middle of the pack against tight ends over the second half of the season. 15th most points allowed to the position.
Oh, man.
Goddard's a tough one this week.
I would definitely play Goddard over Dalton Kincaid.
100%. Well, you know what? Great. Let's play a name game. Keep thinking about it while I pull up a nice list of names here.
That's what I've been doing to go like, okay, let's make sure I'm not talking crazy here.
I mean, give me another name that you're considering.
Isaiah Likely.
I'd play Likely.
Tucker Kraft.
No, I'd play Goddard.
Cole Kmet.
Is he injured?
I
believe he's dealing with injury.
I should check up on that. He did miss practice on Wednesday.
There we go. So I do believe he is injured. Jake Ferguson, you play Jake Ferguson?
Yeah, I'd probably play Ferguson.
Holy crap. Kyle Pitts is a tight end 12 this year?
Oh, kind of by process of elimination with everyone else.
I mean, I think that's kind of where the line is, though. I think it's that like Jake Ferguson line there. I'd play Jake Ferguson, but I would play Likely. But that's kind of the line I'm looking at here. Is would I play any of those guys ahead of Goddard? And I think Likely is the only other one that I would, because he's closer to the top of the pecking order than Dallas Goedert is.
Yeah, I mean, just based on just other names that you're considering at that point. I mean, you're considering, well, how about, so a name that I think has flown under the radar just because of the team that he's on in his current situation, Gerald Everett.
I'd still play Goddard.
Now, here's the thing. Last 3 games, 8 targets in each, at least 5 catches, and he's only gone for about 40 yards in those games. So he's only getting you about 9 to 10 fantasy points.
I mean, Goddard's been getting you about 7.
So
I think the difference in Goddard's ceiling there is worth the 2 points I might have to sacrifice there to get 7 more than Gerald Everett.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Kyler Murray started the week in Cameron's YouTube video this week. You can check that out on the channel. Philadelphia, they are allowing the 3rd most fantasy points quarterbacks over the second half of the season. And Kyler, he has scored 20 plus in 3 of 6 starts this year, 18.9 or more in 4 of those starts. I'm starting Kyler Murray this week if I have him.
Yep. Same here.
James Conner. We finally got to James Conner. Let's talk about him, Ty. 22.5, 17.9, 22.2 fantasy points in each of the last 3 weeks. He is the running back 3 in fantasy points per game since week 13. And Philly, since their bye, they've been sneaky bad against running backs since the bye. 6th most fantasy points allowed to running backs, 8th most rushing yards allowed. Running backs have been targeted the 10th most times, and they're 4th in running back receptions allowed. I'm fine playing James Conner this week if I have him. I like in a league where I lost Ramondre for the season, traded away Kyron Williams before he was healthy. I got James Conner in there, and I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I'm pulling up. I'm pulling up his stats. He's been getting the ball a lot lately.
Fed. He's getting absolutely fed.
I don't think you can. I should say this though. Hollywood Brown, with his injury, whatever situation we want to call it, James Conner has been the benefactor of Hollywood Brown not playing, not getting the ball enough.
He's probably the 2nd best playmaker on that offense now because Trey McBride is a thing. Higher up on the pecking order, gets more touches, and he was already getting fed before that. So I'm good playing James Conner this week if you have him. Yeah. Carolina Panthers, they visit the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're playing Travis Etienne, and look, I think we want to make Evan Ingram like I don't know, I got this guy or Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram's been balling. What are we doing? He's a must start. Start him. Yeah. He's a top 5 tight end this year.
He's the Calvin tight end one over the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks. 10
that
and 1.
Sounds right. He's been phenomenal. Evan Ingram is a must start. Don't even consider starting anybody else over him unless you have a Trey McBride or Sam Laporta or Travis Kelce. But I don't know why you would have any of those other guys stacked up with Evan Ingram. Maybe you have a Laporta and Ingram, but you're playing Evan Ingram if he's your tight end 1. If he's your best tight end, you're playing Evan Ingram. Calvin Ridley, though, really depends on if Trevor Lawrence plays or not.
Yeah, that's what I would kept coming back to.
But Carolina, I mean, they got J.C. Horn back. 8th fewest fantasy points per game to wide receivers since week 10. This defense has been really good. This is an underrated secondary. Mm-hmm. I'm not a chance on Calvin Ridley this week if I don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, you probably aren't in the championship if you have Calvin Ridley.
Probably not.
Man, like, you look at the situation in Jacksonville and you're like, well, it's him and Evan Ingram for pass catchers. So like, that's gotta mean something. Man, something just seems off about this matchup for me. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's the part of Carolina being pretty good against wide receivers this year. I don't know if it's the Trevor Lawrence injury, but it just doesn't, something about it doesn't sit right with me when I think about starting Calvin Ridley, if that makes sense. Like, there's no good. There's no. I bet people don't want to listen to this and hear us go like, it doesn't sound right in my head, but think about it yourself. And if it doesn't sound right, like, that's where I'm at right now.
I just think this is a Travis Etienne game. Why wouldn't he get fed plenty of touches in this game against a Carolina defense where teams just run the ball nonstop? It's a Travis Etienne game. So I would be looking to avoid Calvin Ridley if I have other options this week. Adam Thielen, since their week 7 bye, he's been pretty bad. 4 finishes outside of the top 30. Inside of the top 30, excuse me. 5 finishes, my goodness, outside of the top 35. So it's kind of been 50-50 there. Inconsistent, right. And those games inside of the top 30, he's averaging 14.5. Outside, he's averaging 6.5. don't really want to trust him championship week, even in a good matchup with the Jaguars. Correct?
I would hope you've got someone else to play instead of him.
You based on ADP, I think you would have to.
Right.
Chuba Hubbard though. He down week.
Yeah.
Down week last week. Still a top 20 running back though. And I don't mind the matchup with Jacksonville at all. Second half of the season. 6th in fantasy points allowed to the running back position. And they're going to feed Chuba. They're going to do it. 16 plus rushing attempts in each of the last 4 games. I would much rather start him than a guy like Gus Edwards this week.
Yeah, I would too. Totally.
Let's keep it moving. Vegas. They visit the Colts. You're playing Jonathan Taylor if he's active. Michael Pittman Jr., if he plays, you're going to start him. He is questionable still, though. I know Devontae Adams, 1 reception this last week. Probably not in the championship if you had Devontae Adams, but hey, if you manage to squeak through, I'm willing to write that one off. Mm-hmm. Vegas didn't even have 70 yards passing in that game. Nobody did good except for Zamir White.
Yep.
So let's talk about Zamir White. If Josh Jacobs sits out again, you want to play Zamir White?
Sorry, I was taking.
All right, I caught you at a bad time there. You're taking a nice sip of Prime there, not a sponsor.
I was not a sponsor, but hey. No, Indy's allowing the 3rd most fantasy points per game the second half of the season to running backs. Like, they are not very good against the run.
Yep.
That's a smash start for Zamir White if Josh Jacobs is out.
100% agree. Josh Downs. This is if Michael Pitt. I put this in here. If Michael Pittman Jr. is out, are you interested?
Heck to the no.
Okay. I agree. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
The Rams, that was a quick one. Not a lot to talk about in that game, honestly. Kind of a gross game to have championship week.
It is.
The Rams, though, they visit the New York Giants. You got Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Saquon Barkley are all in your lineup. You got Tyrod Taylor. He is going to be starting over Tommy Cutlets this week. That was a terrible Italian accent. I don't know what that was.
How's your family?
How's your family, huh?
How's your family?
Nice little run for Tommy. But Tyrod will be back. Darren Waller. What are we doing with Darren Waller? I'm not interested. There's just no pizzazz there. You can give me the argument. I'm not interested.
I actually love Darren Waller this week if you're looking for a tight end option.
Oh, brother.
Like, give me Darren Waller over Dallas Goedert.
That was actually, I missed that one.
Yeah. Like, give me Darren Waller. If I in one of my leagues, one of the leagues that I made the championship in, I had TJ Hawkinson. So I'm in the same boat as you. I look at Darren Waller kind of the same way I'm looking at Jake Ferguson, where I'm like, if they're available or if I've got them, I feel great about playing them this week in place of TJ Hawkinson. Since coming back from his injury, Darren Waller, his snaps by position along the offensive line. Week 15 on a snap count. 5 snaps out wide, 6 snaps in line, 15 snaps in the slot. This past week against Philly, 7 in line, 11 out wide, 21 in the slot. He's more of a wide receiver than he is a tight end, right? And now you get this matchup with the Rams, who are allowing the 4th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. And you're like, well, Darren Waller's not a wide receiver, so whatever. The Rams are still allowing the 13th most fantasy points per game to tight ends the second half of the season. Tyrod has to throw the ball at somebody. And with how good the Rams are against the run, they're going to have to throw the ball. And I think it's going to be Darren Waller that benefits from that.
Not Darius Slayton.
Get out of here.
I'm actually kind of serious.
No, I can't. He only had 3 catches, and one of them was 60-something yard touchdown, was it not?
Correct. But there's something about Darius Slayton where, look, if he's going to be targeted down, he's a downfield guy, and he can make a big play happen. I would agree. I would still play Waller, but Like Darius Slayton is a sneaky one for me.
I feel like he's probably like your DFS
Yeah, a great DFS guy this week. I agree. Great DFS guy this week. Matt Stafford. He's on fire. Quarterback 7, quarterback 8, quarterback 5, quarterback 12, quarterback 10 in his last 5 starts. And the Giants, 8th most fantasy points per game to the quarterback position since week 10. I'm interested. Much rather play Stafford over Derek Carr this week.
Yep. Stafford is the streaming option this week if you need a streaming option.
I couldn't agree more. San Francisco. They visit the Washington Commanders. Play all your 49ers this week. Play all your 49ers. CMC, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, Purdy. Purdy's going to be fine. This is a great matchup. Terry McLaurin. Jacoby Brissett is now a quarterback. They've officially made the change. San Francisco allowing the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers lined up outside. He's got one read wonder Jacoby at quarterback, baby. I'm very interested in Terry McLaurin this week. This sneaky good play, I think, championship week.
Yeah, he's going to get peppered with targets, and it's going to work out. It's going to smack. San Francisco is allowing the 6th most fantasy points to wideouts. Terry lines up out wide 87.5% of the time. This plays like right into Terry McLaurin's strengths, and like he should feast.
Terry McLaurin or Garrett Wilson?
How about Garrett Wilson? Because I know if I said Terry, you're going to play Terry McLaurin.
I don't have Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I just needed to say
that
because
I don't got Terry McLaurin.
I didn't know if it was a test or not. That's all I'm saying.
No.
No, I would play Terry over Garrett Wilson.
I think I would too. I think I would this week. I love the matchup, and if it's one read Kobe, baby, I'll take Terry. Antonio Gibson, Chris Rodriguez banged up. He was kind of the lead guy, 19 fantasy points last week. Brian Robinson still banged up as well. If Antonio Gibson is a guy all by his lonesome, are you interested at all?
Nah.
That's it? No analysis? No nothing?
Nope.
A tough matchup. I don't blame you. We can keep it moving then. I'm not too interested in Antonio Gibson out there. Excuse me. The Steelers visit the Seahawks. I don't know if there's an obvious start in this game. I don't think there's anybody you can set in your lineup and forget. DK Metcalf might be the only one.
Oh, man.
But even him. Look, here's my thing, though. Steelers wide receiver ones against the Steelers have been just fine this year. They've been just fine. It all gets funneled to one guy and everybody else stinks. T. Higgins. We just saw T. Higgins have a massive day against the Steelers. He's peppered with targets. It's these wide receiver ones that eat against the Steelers. So I think DK Metcalf is fine in your lineup this week. I know. Look, I know. I'll let you plead your case. I'm not too worried. I'm still playing DK.
You probably still play DK, but I don't know if it's DK that's going to be the one that benefits more than it's going to be Tyler Lockett. I mean, Pittsburgh is pretty middle of the pack in terms of fantasy points allowed to both outside and slot wide receivers. My thing with DK is that he's actually been getting the least amount of volume between the 3 wide receivers since over the last 3 weeks. He's averaging 3.5 catches on 5.5 targets. He's been the big play guy. He's getting about 62 yards in those games, and he's scored twice, which has really, really helped him out in those finishes. But then you look at Tyler Lockett, he's averaging 5.5 receptions, 8.5 targets, 63.5 yards, but 0 touchdowns. JSN then 4.5 catches, 6 targets, 44.5 yards with 1 touchdown in the last 3 games. My thing is just, I don't know if it is for sure going to be DK Metcalf. That's the one that benefits from this. Sure, he's got the red zone upside. You're playing him this week. I think Tyler Lockett you could also play. And if I had to take one wide receiver, that's going to benefit the most in this game, I feel like it's going to be Tyler Lockett. That's just my thing.
I don't want to say there's a Drew Lock discount in there too, but at the same time,
maybe
there might be a little bit of a Drew Lock discount in there. I hear you on that though. I'm still plugging in DK though. I'm still plugging in DK.
You got to.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, what didn't go to the mute button quick enough. Kenneth Walker. I assume you're playing him no matter what, even though he only got you 6 last week.
Yeah, I mean he's the guy in that backfield. So I wouldn't feel great. I mean, I would feel better about James Conner than I do Kenneth Walker.
I would too.
But I think Kenneth Walker is just like one of those last couple names that I would still play like as a top 24 guy. But it's somewhere in that like 20 to 24 range.
I'm with you on that. Running backs for the Steelers, though, Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. What a phenomenal matchup. Seattle, second most fantasy points allowed to running back since week 10. I don't know if you're in the championship with either of them, but if you are, I think you could play either this week.
I think I would agree.
Steelers wide receivers, Pickens, Deontay Johnson. Look, Pickens, mega huge day. If he ain't happy after that game, I don't know what's going to make him happy. Probably another game like that, because knowing George Pickens, unless if he's having a game like that every day of the week, he's never going to be happy in Pittsburgh.
True.
You want to play either of them? I'm not super interested.
I will say, like, the matchup isn't great for both of them. The encouraging thing that we saw last week against Cincinnati is that they were willing to throw the ball downfield. We have not seen that in this offense. Like, we've only seen it a couple times, I should say, with Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. They feel comfortable going downfield with Mason Rudolph for whatever reason. So it's not as like because of that, for me at least, it's not as much of a like heck to the no, never in a million years kind of sit, but it's more so of like things have been looking better for them. It's just not the matchup to play them, especially in championship weekend.
Garrett Wilson, DeAndre Hopkins, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf. I'm trying to think of all the guys we've talked about in that range. I would play all of them ahead of either of them.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's keep it moving, though. We got 3 more games to talk about and barely enough time to talk about them. Cincinnati Bengals, they travel to play the Kansas City Chiefs. You're playing Mahomes, Kelsey, and Mixon. No real questions asked there. You know what stinks? I can't... I'm going to whisper this nice and close into my microphone because... I really don't want anybody else to hear me saying this. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a must start this week. Woo! Little ASMR for you all, but I'm saying that it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a must start this week. Well, I vomit everywhere. Oh my god! I can't believe what has this world come to? That Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a must start. Pacheco gonna be out. McKinnon on. What? Here we go. All of a sudden, when you took Clyde Edwards-Helaire in your dynasty rookie drafts ahead of Jonathan Taylor all these years ago, you actually did it in this very moment. Week 17, championship on the line, fate of the universe. Martians got the death beam pointed at Earth. I want Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yes. Oh man, no, I'm benefiting from the current situation of Kansas City because I have CEH. I have to. Matchup is there. Workload will be there. Yeah. Yep. But if Pacheco plays for whatever reason,
then I'm not interested.
Nope, you cannot play him.
T. Higgins, he's the other guy we got to consider in this matchup. He's the wide receiver 1, still likely without Jamar Chase this week. They keep listing him as questionable. We all know Jamar Chase probably isn't going to be playing this week.
If he does, it's stupid.
If he does, it's stupid. you're interested in T. Higgins.
Because I just think situation matters. That like it's not a great
L'Jarius
matchup.
Sneed doesn't do anything for you.
Again, Kansas City has been very, very good against wide receivers, but again, if I feel like there's offense to be had in this game, and I say offense, not points, because those are two different things. Situation matters. He's the wide receiver 1 for Jake Browning. I feel like that has to count for something.
Get ready to clip this one up. I would play DeAndre Hopkins, Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, all ahead of T. Higgins this week.
Oh boy, that
I mean, the people could chop me up in the comments if I'm wrong. I think the L'Jarius Sneed treatment is real. I think it's real. He has been shut down this year. I think it's 100% real. I just not interested. I think he can run on the Chiefs, man. Like if this could be another big Joe Mixon, Chris Evans. I think it could be a big week for both of them. Like Chris Evans, I think is a sneaky DFS play this week. Like a long shot DFS play.
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans.
Chase Brown.
Chase Brown, excuse me. That I'm calling Chase Evans. Chris
wow.
Brown. Chase Brown, Chris Evans. My goodness. Yeah. Sorry. Chase Brown, not Chris Evans. Thank you. Both 5-letter first names start with C.
Sure.
Both have 5-letter last names.
How maybe am I overcomplicating it by thinking if Cincinnati can protect Jake Browning, T. Higgins will be fine?
Sure. I mean, I'm not against playing T. Higgins this week. I'm just saying, like, I'm not gonna be surprised if he gives you only 5 this week.
So is T. Higgins another Derrick Henry then?
No. Different stratosphere of players.
Well, from just the only perspective of I'm okay going down if T. Higgins doesn't perform.
Nope.
Interesting.
Nope. Jamar Chase, yes. T. Higgins is not worth it to me.
Just because of name value? Is that what you're saying?
No, T. Higgins has notoriously been a bust for you. Like he gives you big weeks without Jamar, but like he can also give you a dud without Jamar. I don't think that's impossible. We haven't seen it yet. He's had 160-yard game with Jamar Chase, or without Jamar Chase, excuse me. I don't think he's incapable of giving you a dud despite being the guy. And T. Higgins is a guy that too many people have been burned on too many times already. He's not one that I'm willing to go down on the ship with. I'd rather go with my process there than stick with T. Higgins.
Sure.
The Chargers, they visit the Broncos. Keenan Allen, if he plays, got a practice report on him. You're playing him. And I think you're playing Austin Eckler against the Broncos run defense that stinks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Yep. Oh, the Broncos have been getting better though. They've been getting better.
Broncos
have
been
been getting season eighth fantasy points allowed to running backs.
That's still a plus matchup for him.
It's still a plus matchup for Eckler. I agree. Javonte Williams. Look, the Chargers, they bottled up James Cook pretty well last week. 20 for 70, only 3.5 yards per carry. You have any interest in Javonte? You want to play him at all?
No, there's too many moving pieces with not enough like built up credibility, I'll call it, with really any Broncos player at this point. I don't think this is not the time to rely on a Javonte Williams. Maybe he gets more touches just because it is Jarrett Stidham at quarterback, but there's been nothing from Javonte really this year that gives me any kind of reassurance that he's the right play.
And Jarrett Stidham. Russell Wilson expected to be cut by the Broncos in March per Diana Rossini.
Jeez.
Reported 36 minutes ago, halfway through our podcast here.
Oh, man.
Wilson has been starting knowing the organization was most likely going to move on from him after this season.
Oh, man. I think I saw someone tweet out earlier today when the news broke that he was being benched. It's like Russell Wilson and Arthur Smith are about to create the most disgusting offense you've ever seen. I was like, Lord, please, let's not have that happen.
It's just insane the amount they gave up for Russell Wilson, only to now move on from him 2 seasons later.
I guess that's the plus of having the richest owners in the league. You just do whatever you want and be like, yep, that's what we're doing.
Jerry Jeudy, no interest if Jarrett Stidham is at the helm.
Nope.
We'll keep it moving then. I had to throw that in there. I saw that. I'm like, wow, good timing. We're talking about the Broncos. Let's throw that breaking news in there. We really got to get like a breaking news in there because I feel like just this. I feel like that doesn't really like insinuate like a breaking news kind of a thing.
So generic too, and we've used it for Phil Fade. We've used it for.
It sounds much more like that, right? Like a lock it in, like a da-da-da-da-da, lock it in, right?
Yeah.
Not like a
game show.
Right. All right. Anyways, last game we got to talk about, Ty. Green Bay Packers coming to Minneapolis, playing the Minnesota Vikings this week. The only
Packers
player,
week, baby.
It's Packers week, baby. No Jair Alexander either. What a boneheaded move.
Absolute fool.
I mean, he did it to himself, but really, Green Bay playoff hopes on the line. Like, you're really suspending Jair?
I heard someone say, like, I would have been okay if you find him into oblivion, but to suspend him, wow, that's a message.
The only player you can start in this matchup is Justin Jefferson with any confidence, correct? I should say with any confidence. The only player that you're locking in is Justin Jefferson. You're not thinking twice about it.
Yeah, that's the only one.
302 touchdowns for Jefferson this week. No Jair. Jordan Addison, he is listed day to day. I don't think he plays this week.
KOC called him questionable yesterday.
Right.
That's
called
not
him day to day. Yeah, called him day to day. I'm not expecting him to play this week. But Green Bay, look, 5th most fantasy points of wide receivers in the second half of the season. They are allowing the most fantasy points in the slot. And no, Justin Jefferson is going to feast, man. It's going to be a field day for him. KJ Osborne, sneaky good play this. Not sneaky good play, but if you're desperate.
Oof, I would hope you're not desperate at this point in the season. Yeah. But you know how I called Darius Slayton a pretty good like DFS.
Oh, flyer? KJ Osborne is just as good. Yeah.
KJ Osborne is the number one.
I would put KJ Osborne in more DFS lineups than I would Darius Slayton this week.
Yes.
I agree with that. Ty Chandler, Green Bay, 9th most fantasy points at running back second half of the season, 5th most yards. If the Vikings are playing ahead in this game, game script could get him more touches. Green Bay has just been eaten up by efficient backs this year too. So I sneaky like I think Ty Chandler is fine if you need him this week.
I don't know if you noticed this on Twitter last week, but everyone's like, I'm playing Ty Chandler over anyone that's not named, and then they would list like the top 7 running backs. It was like, really? I think those tweets were just a week early.
Yeah.
This is going to be a great game for Ty Chandler.
I think you can play him this week. Who you play, him or James Conner?
Ty Chandler.
I think I would lean Ty Chandler too. Not by much though. I think I got him kind of in the same tier. I think they both get you like 14 this week.
Here we go. Ready for this one? Here we go.
Yeah.
Name game for you.
My favorite. Notice how I have a much different attitude than you.
It is enemy number 1 for me. What is it? Oh, how fitting is this? You and I in the championship of one of our leagues.
Yep.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Hit me with it.
Ty Chandler or Derrick Henry? Oh, we did.
I'm going down with the ship. I'm going down with the ship.
Really? Wow.
I'll go down with the ship. I'll play Derrick Henry.
Ty Chandler or Austin Eckler?
Austin Eckler.
Okay. Ty Chandler or CEH?
CEH, but we're getting close.
Ty Chandler or Steelers running backs?
Ty Chandler. I'll play Ty Chandler over both. I don't trust that offense.
Ty Chandler or Zamir White if Josh Jacobs is out?
See, that's a really that's a really good one.
The one.
That's the one. Because you got the case for both. I think I would play Zamir White.
Sure.
I think I would play Zamir White, but that is awfully close there. I think that's about the tier that you're looking at there is Ty Chandler, Zamir White. I think those two could put up very similar weeks and very similar matchups.
Now, last one, just so you can get a good laugh out of this and more so laugh at me than anything, but Ty Chandler or Tony Pollard?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that one. Believe it or not, I think I'll go Ty Chandler over Tony Pollard.
I know, I would too.
Now, Tony Pollard's a ship I'm not willing to go down with. I would rather go Ty Chandler there, assuming Alexander Madison doesn't get any more touches this week. A few more names we got to discuss here, Ty. Well, not even a few. I don't know. Any Packers running backs? Minnesota allowing the most fantasy points per game to running back since week 10.
I sneaky like Aaron Jones this week.
I think you could play Aaron Jones this week. I don't know if I sneaky like him, but I think you can play him this week.
Sure. Yes, I like Aaron Jones this week enough to get him into my lineup if I have the spot for him.
Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, whole clan of wide receivers there, banged up. Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, both on the injury report. Minnesota susceptible more outside. More to wide receivers lined up outside than in the slot. And hello, Romeo Doubs. Any interest in him?
So Jaden Reed was limited on Wednesday.
Okay. So good sign.
Christian Watson was out.
I don't think we're going to get Christian Watson this week.
So Jaden Reed, I believe, has been the slot wide receiver for them. Yep. Romeo Doubs, I think, is in that KJ Osborne DFS tier. Sure. I really hope you're not in the spot where you're in the championship. You're like, oh, I got Romeo Doubs. This is the week. I pray that's not you.
Yeah.
But I think like if you're in just in a fun league or whatever, like throw him in. Why not? With how bad this secondary is, like, why not? Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, if Christian Watson is out, I think Romeo Doubs is an interesting flyer this week if you really, really need somebody. Mm-hmm. And that wraps out all of the start-sit decisions that you need to make in Week 17. Did we miss anything? Anything we need to correct ourselves on?
Nope. I don't think so, at least.
Perfect episode. You don't need to make any corrections because the episode was flawless and no mistakes were made at all at any point in the episode.
Nope. I mean, I was going to make a guarantee that I can never guarantee. So never mind. We keep moving.
Good choice. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel already, you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications because we have new videos coming out for you literally every single day. Shorts, YouTube videos, podcasts, you name it. There's video content for you every single day, twice a day. So make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications. Same for the audio podcast. Hey, we so appreciate all of you who have stuck through the season with us. For those of you who earlier this month sent us your Spotify Wraps and said, look, the fantasy football fellas, you guys are awesome. Oh, that was heartwarming for us. We greatly appreciate you all who listen to the podcast. Thanks for your loyal listenership over there. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, make sure you do that and leave us a nice little review as well. We love hearing from you all about what you like, even what you could be like, hey, you know what? They can improve on this. Lucas and Tyler, they say the word like too much. You can give us that feedback. I actually think about that stuff then. I'm like, you know what? The people know they can make me a better podcaster. So we enjoy hearing from you all. I almost said it there. We enjoy hearing from you all. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, we would greatly appreciate it if you do so. You can follow us on the socials, FFLs on TFFLs on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. I'm Matt Lucas Wenzel over on X, Tyler_platform. Tyler. We will be back next week. Fantasy Football Awards show is next week, baby. We will be back. We will bring you the entire recap of the season in the form of the Fantasy Football Awards. I'm looking forward to it. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and deuces.
Deuces.